All right, so let's dive in. Today, we're tackling human history.
Sounds ambitious.
Well, we've got your excerpts from Harari's Sapiens to guide us. It's all about these huge revolutions, the cognitive, the agricultural, then the scientific, and how they've changed, well, everything. Us, the planet, the whole deal.
It's a pretty wild ride when you think about it.
Yeah, and Harari makes you really rethink things. Like, we always hear humans have been around for millions of years, but...
Well, not always the exciting, world-changing humans we think of now.
Exactly. Harari points out that for most of those millions of years, we were just kind of blending in, like any other animal, 2.5 million years of just existing.
Makes you wonder, what was the turning point?
Well, that's where this cognitive revolution comes in, right? Around 70,000 years ago.
Big moment.
Yeah.
And Harari's argument is that language is what did it, but not just simple communication.
Okay, so more than just like, hey, look, a mammoth.
Way more. It's about humans suddenly being able to create these, well, he calls them shared realities.
Shared realities. That's a bit out there. Could you break that down a little? What does that actually mean?
All right, think of it this way. A lion sees a gazelle, right? It's thinking dinner, basic. We see a gazelle, we might think dinner too, but we can also think about stuff that isn't physically there. Gods, nations, money even. Things that only have power because we all agree they do.
Whoa, okay, so it's like humans invented a whole extra layer of reality on top of the real world.
And that's what lets us cooperate on a massive scale, build these huge empires, invent money, things no other animal can do.
So language, that's the big leap forward.
According to Harari, yeah. And even something like cooking played a part, not just making food easier to digest, but freeing up time and energy for our brains to develop. Think about spending 5 hours a day chewing raw meat like chimps.
No thanks. I'll stick with my cooked meals.
Right. But it's interesting, a simple change like that could have such a big impact on who we are, how we evolved, how our societies work.
Makes you wonder what other seemingly small things had a huge effect.
Oh, for sure. But of course, it wasn't all sunshine and fancy dinners back then. Harari also talks about this thing, the megafauna extinction.
Right, when Homo sapiens showed up in new places, a lot of big animals disappeared.
Controversial topic. But it raises questions about our relationship with the environment, even way back then.
I guess we like to think of early humans as living in harmony with nature, but...
Maybe not the whole story. Evidence suggests we were already capable of making a big impact. Not always positive.
Sobering thought. So even before cities and factories and all that, we were changing things up.
And speaking of cities, Harari challenges another idea a lot of people have about early humans.
That they were all living in these simple, equal societies.
Right. Everyone's sharing everything, no hierarchy. Discoveries like that Sundir burial site in Russia, well, it tells a different story.
What's it, Sundir?
Imagine this. A 50-year-old man buried with over 3,000 ivory beads, each one carefully made. That's not something you just toss in a grave.
3,000. That's a statement, not just decoration. Makes you wonder who this guy was.
Exactly. Was he a leader? Shaman? Early fashion icon, maybe. We can speculate all day. But the point is, even before farming, humans had these complex social structures, beliefs.
And those were probably tied to those imagined realities we were talking about earlier, right?
Seems very likely. And that brings us to a pretty major turning point, the agricultural revolution. We tend to think progress, right?
Yeah.
But Harari, he calls it a luxury trap.
A trap? How so? We started settling down, building civilizations.
Sure, but there's a trade-off. Remember those hunter-gatherers? Diverse diet, more free time, could move around as they pleased.
Sounds pretty good, actually.
Right. But farming, that's long hours, hard labor, depending on just a few crops.
So if those crops fail?
Exactly. Famine, disease. It's a whole different set of risks. You traded freedom for security, but is it really that secure?
Makes you think, we're always chasing the next big thing, the upgrade. Like, are we really any happier? Less stressed?
That's exactly the parallel Harari's drawing. Do our fancy gadgets actually improve our well-being? It's a good question to ask ourselves, even today. What are we really chasing after?
Deep stuff. But okay, so we've got agriculture, bigger populations, settlements turning into, well, cities. I guess empires are the next logical step.
And they pop up in a big way. Harari walks us through this whole progression, from Jericho, one of the first cities, to these massive empires like Egypt, Akkad.
Oh yeah, the pyramids. That takes serious organization.
No kidding. Empires needed a level of coordination we hadn't seen before. Hierarchies, armies, bureaucracy. And to manage it all, you need something else.
Writing.
Writing.
Makes sense. Can't imagine running an empire based on word of mouth. Taxes, records, messages.
It's about power, too. Hammurabi's code, these laws written down. Rulers could spread their ideas, their beliefs much more effectively.
So those imagined realities, gods, nations, now they're not just in our heads, they're on paper, lasting longer.
Exactly. Writing just turbocharged those shared myths, made empires stronger, more unified. And alongside writing, another big force pops up. Money.
Okay, money. Easier than bartering a cow for a loaf of bread, sure. But what's so revolutionary about it?
Harari says it's one of the most successful imagined realities ever invented. Not about the coins or bills themselves, but the trust they represent. Think about it.
So when I buy a coffee, I'm not just exchanging a dollar, I'm participating in this huge system that we all believe in.
Precisely. That shared belief allows trade, cooperation on a scale we couldn't imagine otherwise. It fuels economic growth.
But of course, there's always another side to the coin, right? Money can lead to greed, inequality, even wars.
That's the tension. Huge potential for good, but also for bad. Innovation, progress, but also exploitation, corruption.
Are we too reliant on money nowadays? Has it warped our values somehow? These are debates we're still having.
For sure. But let's not forget another powerful force shaping societies. Religion, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism. These spread across continents, offering people meaning, a sense of belonging.
Right, something beyond just material stuff.
And that's fascinating. Empires used force, money facilitated transactions, but religion offered something different. Shared identity, values, a promise of something bigger than ourselves.
A different kind of currency, almost. Based on faith, belief. Just as powerful, maybe more so than money or military might.
Think about Buddhism spreading along the Silk Road. It wasn't just trade goods, it was ideas, practices. Buddhism transformed societies without needing an army. That's powerful stuff.
Amazing how those belief systems could travel so far, even without the internet. But of course, religion has also been a source of conflict, division.
Sadly true. Harari doesn't shy away from that. Organized religion can be used to justify all sorts of bad things. Violence, oppression.
A recurring theme, huh? It seems every major step forward comes with risks, downsides. We're complicated creatures.
We are, and that complexity is really on display when we get to the scientific revolution. This is where Harari kind of flips the script on how we think about progress.
Oh, how so?
We usually think explosion of knowledge, right? New discoveries galore. But Harari says the key was actually a revolution of ignorance.
Hold on, ignorance. How does that make us progress?
It's about admitting what we don't know. Before this, people relied on tradition, dogma, ancient texts, whatever the authority figure said. But the scientific method, that's all about doubt, questioning, testing things out.
So instead of pretending to have all the answers, scientists were like, let's see what the evidence tells us, even if it contradicts what we thought before.
Exactly. That's a huge shift. Embracing uncertainty, revising our understanding as we learn more.
And it led to some incredible breakthroughs. Laws of physics, circulation of blood, I mean, the list goes on.
And it wasn't just theory. New technology, new industries. The modern world as we know it wouldn't exist without it. Printing press, steam engine, electricity.
It's mind-blowing how much changed in a few centuries, and all because we admitted we didn't know everything. But even with science, there are downsides, right?
Of course. Like Harari says, knowledge is a tool. It can be used for good or bad. We get life-saving medicine, but also more efficient ways to fight wars. We harness nature's power, but sometimes end up harming the environment in the process.
Same old story, huh? Every step forward has its risks.
That's the challenge, isn't it? Figuring out how to use our knowledge, our creativity, without causing more harm than good. And that's even more important now in the 21st century, with all this new technology coming up.
Wow, it's incredible to think about how far we've come.
From those early hunter-gatherers to empires and money and science, it's quite the journey.
And it's not over yet. We're still evolving, still shaping the world, hopefully for the better.
That's what makes it so fascinating, right? History isn't just a story, it's happening all around us.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, where are we going next? What's next for us?
Exactly. And Harari doesn't just leave us with, like, a recap. He asks this question, and I think it's at the heart of everything we've talked about. Has history actually made us happier?
Big question. $1 million question, maybe. On the one hand, you'd think the answer's got to be yes, right? I mean, we've got more stuff, we live longer, we've got technology our ancestors couldn't even dream of.
But is that all it takes? Think about it. We're bombarded with information, pressure to succeed, anxieties about the future. Are we really happier than those hunter-gatherers roaming around, living off the land?
Philosophers have been arguing about this for centuries. Harari doesn't give us a simple answer, but he makes us think about what happiness even means. Have we traded it away somehow? For wealth, for status, for things that don't really matter?
It's like that luxury trap idea again. Maybe not just on an individual level, but for society as a whole. We keep chasing more, but are we getting any closer to what actually makes us content?
It's interesting. For most of history, happiness wasn't necessarily the goal, right? It was about survival, keeping things in order, expanding territory. But now, with all this power to change humanity itself, through tech, through engineering, well, maybe happiness should be the goal?
If we can change our biology, our genes, even merge with AI, shouldn't we be asking, will this make us happier? Before we just jump in.
Absolutely. And leads to some even deeper questions. What is a good life? What do we owe to future generations? How do we create a world that's good for everyone, not just in terms of stuff, but in terms of well-being?
Big questions. But we gotta ask them, especially now, with all this change happening so fast.
And that's where Harari's book is so valuable. It doesn't tell us the answers, but it gives us ways to think about these challenges. By understanding history, all the forces that got us here, the good and the bad, well, maybe we can make better choices going forward.
I like that. Learning from the past to create a better future. It's not just about knowing the dates and the names, it's about applying what we learned to our own lives, our own decisions.
Exactly. And maybe just by having these conversations, asking these tough questions, maybe we can start shifting our priorities, rethink what success means, what happiness means, create a world where well-being isn't just an afterthought, but the main goal.
This has been an incredible deep dive. It's really made me think, not just about what happened centuries ago, but about who we are now and what we want the future to be.
Thanks for joining us. We hope it's given you some food for thought as well. Maybe even inspired you to do some exploring of your own. Dive into these big questions about humanity and happiness and what it all means.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep that curiosity alive.
That's what it's all about.